Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Rod Kennedy, and I'll be demonstrating the new payment processing module, which is currently in beta. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section in the webinar here, and we'll get to that towards the end. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be made available later to you. For this presentation, we're going to go over the following sections. We're going to go over system configuration, just to see what the new configuration looks like. We're going to set up a payment plan. We're going to post a single payment. We're going to look at payments to clients, and then we're going to finish up with the consumer portal. Okay, so under the system menu preferences, you'll notice that if you're currently using the payment processing module now with one of our legacy drivers, you'll see the legacy payment processing button is still there. You still have access to it. It still works for now. So you're not losing access to that functionality. This allows you to transition from the old module to the new module if you want to. The old module, though, will not be available in version 14, just so you're aware of that. So the new module, when we click on the button, we got a few options here. The first one is the gateways, which we'll look at in just a moment. The second is fee plans. Fee plans allow you to set up custom plans on a state-by-state basis. So state 1 could have a different rate, state 2 could be a fixed value, state 3 could be different, etc. So you can set up all of those on a state-by-state basis. And on the screen here, you'll see an example of one that I just set up randomly just to show what it looks like. If you're using no cost to biller, so the gateway is charging the fees, then that doesn't apply because the gateway will manage the fees for you. EFT notices is the exact same as it was before, so no difference there. Looking at the gateways themselves, you can set up as many gateways as you want. This allows you the flexibility of different trust accounts. It allows you to set up gateways for your collections and a different gateway for client payments if you want to do that. It also allows you to set up multiple currencies. So if you deal in Canadian dollars, US dollars, Mexican pesos, depending on where you do your collections, you can now set up multiple currencies. So the gateway itself is similar to the previous one. You set up which gateway you're using. Currently, these are the two that are in production. We've got REPAY gateways that are being made available for beta users. But these are the two currently in production right now. The others will come. You select which type of instrument. So card is basically any card, debit card, credit card, any type of card, versus check, which is essentially ACH, pre-authorized debit in Canada. There's a different term in Australia, etc. So it's just basically it's either a card or a bank account. Gateway configuration changes based on whichever gateway you're using. So there's nothing there. That's all gateway dependent. For cards, we are using a method that is PCI compliant. In order to maintain PCI compliance, we are using a company called Evervolt to do our encryption. So the card data never touches collect. It goes straight to Evervolt. Evervolt returns back an encrypted token. That token gets saved into collect and goes from there. This allows you the flexibility of transferring from one provider to another provider. So if you're no longer happy with one, like REPAY, and you want to go to PayScout, all you got to do is get new config, and you do not have to worry about your card information because it's all stored in an encrypted format through a third-party vault. Currently, the only vault we support right now is Evervolt. So, and that goes through us. There's a nominal charge per transaction, but that's just that's through us. You set up your payment transaction, obviously. Fees, whether they're no fees at all, whether they're managed by the gateway, so the no cost to biller program, or if you're doing your fees yourself. And for your own fees, you can do fixed dollar, fixed percentage, or those fee plans we talked about. You can set up the fee transaction type so post properly, and then the payment to fee. So we recommend keeping these separate. So you have your payment, your $100 payment, and then whatever your $5 payment to fee is, two separate transaction types to ensure the breakdown is done properly, and it's easier for tracking. For declines, you can set a decline to type. If this is blank, it'll use the payment type. Same for reversals. You can leave it, you can set a dedicated type, or it'll just use the default over here. Same for fees. You can set a dedicated fee type. If this is blank, it'll use whatever fee type you have over here. Declined attempts. So this is a new feature that's been added to allow you to try more than once. So you can enter in a number of days. So if on Monday it was declined and you got the number 3 in here, it'll try Tuesday and Wednesday. If it fails on Wednesday or Wednesday or Thursday, I think it's, sorry, Thursday. If it fails on Thursday, it's going to come back and say, hey, it's been declined 3 times and I'm going to treat it as a decline now, and it'll do all that processing. So it creates the reviews, runs the contact plan, or cancels the payment plan if you have that set. So it gives you an opportunity to retry a declined payment X number of times, X number of days before it actually gets into a decline situation. So the section at the top here, the same as the legacy module. So you can use group active owing for recurring payments. So instead of creating a payment plan on just the debtor, you can create a payment plan on the entire group. The single payment for the transaction, this would post a $105 payment and then a fee. Without it, it'll post a $100 payment, a $5 payment, and then the fee. And so I recommend leaving it off just so payment breakdown works. The EFT confirmation review, if you want to have a notification to your collector to say before the first payment runs, it says, hey, you need to verify the banking information. So that's something if you want to enable or disable. No auto delete on contacts. I recommend leaving that on just for so the billing tree or the payment processing contacts don't accidentally get deleted by mistake through some other payment contact plan with delete pending contacts. And then these last two are up to you. If you want a declined payment plan, a declined payment to cancel all future payments, you can check this off. And if you want a declined payment to create a review, again, after the 5 days, you can do that as well. And then finally, you can set a payment plan or contact plan to run when you set up a payment plan. And so a simple one would be just like PPA, to go through and set up, thought I had a PPA in here, to delete all pending contacts, so you know dunning letters go out, to set a status code, stuff like that. And I'm just going to use this one for now because I don't know what happened to my other one. You can also use acknowledgements. Actually, we won't do the acknowledgement. Okay. And so the cards have the same configuration. The only difference with cards is there is no option for declines, simply because there's no declines. But in the case of a check, so banking information gets submitted, the payment gets submitted, and then 2 to 5 business days later, you might get an NSF or something like that. So then you get a reversal, and at that point, if you check these boxes, the reversal can cancel the payment plan as well. Okay, so that's it for the gateway configuration. As I said, multiple currencies, multiple different merchant accounts if you need to for different trust accounts, etc., and different fee structures such as fee plans or gateway managed. The last button on here I'm going to bring up is a new feature that's coming that we're going to demonstrate later on, and that is the ability to control negotiated payments. So with this disabled, so if you do not turn this on, what happens is the consumer portal, debtor signs in, they go to make a payment, they can set up a 12-month payment arrangement. That is all. If you enable this section, they can set up a payment arrangement based on the rules you have defined. And so you can set different balance ranges, so from $0 to $100 or $0 to $1,000. And then what happens? So you can have a minimum payment amount, minimum payment percentage, so it takes the higher of the two. And then the number of months that they're allowed to make a payment arrangement for. So small balances, you might limit it to 3 months, no more than 3 payments. Whereas higher balances, you might have higher values. The section below that is settlements. So you can set when you want settlements to start, how long you want settlements to go for. the minimum settlement percentage, so no lower than X number of dollars, and then the maximum number of months a settlement payment arrangement can go for. You could also set different ranges, such as $10,000 or higher, where you can disable cards or ACH. So maybe you don't want cards on higher balances, just ACH only. I thought I had an example with one filled in. But I don't. I will look into that. I thought I had a screenshot with this screen filled in. So, and then you can also set contact plans to run for your settlements. So when a settlement is created, which contact plan it runs. So typically like a status change, delete all pending contacts, that kind of stuff. And then a contact plan to run when your settlement is complete. So if they do a full settle in full right off the bat, or if they set up a payment arrangement, which settlement plan runs on that final payment. For the settlement plan, the final payment, because of order of operations, needs to run a day later. So if your final payment's on the 1st of a month, the settlement final plan will run on the 2nd of the month. You can check this box to enable rules and leave these all blank, because on the client level, you can override them or set different rules on a per client basis. So on the client screen, if we go to advanced, on the right-hand side, there's a new button called Debtor Portal. And here you can define rules on a per client basis. And here's my example, the screenshot I filled in. So I knew I had it somewhere. So this is what it looks like. An example of $0 to $1,000, different options, no settlements. Then you can get to a settlement within this range and higher. And on this balance, no payments allowed. They got to contact you to arrange alternative payments. This is just an example, but you can set it up on a client by client basis now, what the different rules are. And so all you have to do is check enable override and go from there. So that takes over the system configuration. I am just looking to see if there's any questions on the system configuration before we move on. The consumer portal with those rules too, as I said, we're going to demonstrate it later, but it is going to be released later. It hasn't been released yet. Okay, so payment plan. Bring up a debtor. Again, for those of you who are used to the existing module, the card and ACH buttons have been moved. So they're no longer here. If we go advanced, the legacy card and ACH buttons are now on this screen. So that it still runs the same thing, still accesses it. All that stuff is back in here. But they're hidden off because they're no longer, well, they're the past. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the payment form. This will open up a web browser, or I can create a payment plan. So first you select what type it is it a card or a check, and which gateway you're using. So if I say check, there's none in the list here, so I have the option to create a new account. It pre-fills everything for me, and so you can update this as you see fit if the billing information is different. If it's a commercial account, remember to make sure it's a commercial account. That's just a requirement by the ACH providers. Add account, and now I can select it from the list. From here, I'm going to do a payment plan. So you select the first payment date. So let's say the first payment date is the 1st of the October there. You select your repeat cycle. So how often you're going to do a repeat. It supports all the same repeat cycles that current contacts do. And so if we add more contact types, then this will be added to the list automatically. What it does not support right now is custom. We are working on that as a future feature to do custom, where you just enter in a list of payments and dates. But that's a future project. So monthly is the one I'm going to select. I'm going to put in just $1,000 now, just for starting purposes. And so you'll see at the bottom here, it tells you what your owing is, and it tells you how many payments it would take to pay off the owing. So it takes 13 payments. Now it rounds it up because 13 payments is 13,000, but collect automatically deals with that last payment, so you don't need to worry about it. I enable the setting for group accounts too. So on a payment plan by payment plan basis, so it's not global, it's plan by plan. you can check whether or not the payment plan applies to the group. So if I check this box, you'll notice the owing keeps changing. And if I change the owing, it changes the number of payments to pay this off. And so I could say, okay, I want to pay off this group. The guy wants to do $1,000. He wants to pay the entire group, and I am going to do 22 payments. Click submit. And then I'll get successful. And right off the bat, you can see at the top here, I have an option here to see what the current payment plan is. So that way, if somebody else came onto this account, clicked the payment form button and opened up this screen, they can see right then and there, oh, there's already a payment plan. Let's just, before we create another one, let's see what's going on. I could also delete the payment plan. This will delete all the post-dated transactions. It will delete all the contacts, the EFT notices, all that stuff goes away. If I go back to collect here, I've got all those post dates in here ready to go. The post dates are minimal. It's just type, amount, and date. That is all. Nothing else has been filled in because the transaction has not been processed yet. The difference between this module and the previous module is the contact plans and the recalc, the payment breakdown. They all happen at the time the transaction is processed, not the time the transaction is created. That makes the financials more accurate. The other thing too is on payment plan payments, there's a new button at the bottom here, payment details. When I click on that, I'll see some information based on this. So this is an unposted payment. That's why not everything is filled in yet, but this is just showing what is going to happen. So this is a payment that's going to apply to the group. We're not waiving any fees. This is the first payment and a unique identifier for the plan. So that way the contacts are linked to this. And then a few other information, which gateway we're using, which bank account information we're using, etc. So this is all ready to go. And on the 1st of each month, the reconciliation will automatically submit these payments. For contacts, I didn't set up any EFT notices, but I also disabled the reviews. But here we go. There's the promise contact, pretty straightforward. It will run on those days. Oh, okay. On the right-hand side, there is the payment accounts button too. And that, when I open it up, will bring up the actual saved information. So this one I did a bank. So you see the bank information. This is for countries that have an extra institution code, such as Canada. So for US, it won't apply. These are the two for US. Your billing information here. And so if for some reason the debtor says, hey, I need to update my banking information, you can update that yourself from here, or they can update it in the consumer portal, as will be demonstrated later. So that's a payment plan. For here, I'm going to go to a single payment. So this one, I'm going to bring up a payment form. I'm going to select the card this time, new account. Now, this data at the bottom below the line is not us. This is a third party, EverVault. It's their frame. We're just displaying it. So as soon as I click add account, we submitted the data to EverVault, came back, and before I do anything else, I'm going to go back to collect and show you what that looks like. As you can see, it's all encrypted. That's what EverVault did. Return that, and there you go. So the only information that you can update here is the expiry date. If you need to update anything else, that will be added in the future, where there's going to be an edit button here. The consumer portal already has that edit button, so the consumer can update their own information. So if they get new card data, they can go in there, hit edit, update it, and away they go. They don't need to do anything else. So I'm going to run. So to do a single payment, the only thing that's different is no repeat. So I don't select a repeat cycle. I just leave it as no repeat. That means it's going to run it on this day. I can run it today, or I can run it into the future if I want to schedule something for Friday or next week. This calendar only allows for up to 1 month. So you can't schedule a payment more than 1 month into the future, except for payment plans. But like the first payment has to be within the next month. So I'm going to leave it for today's date. And same thing, you got that option for apply to group. I am going to apply to group. And I'm also just going to post 4,100. I'm just going to make it a higher number just to show what happens. Now, for no cost to biller, some no cost to biller providers have this script that you have to read to your collectors. And so the system comes back saying, hey, you got to read this script off to your people, off to the consumer, and say, this is what's going to be charged. Click OK. There's the $6 fee that's going to be added. If they forgot the script, there's a little button here to view the script again. Once it's all good, there is an option to waive fees. If you want to waive fees, that's completely based on you, but otherwise the system will charge the fees. I'm going to click submit, and away it goes. So when I go back to collect, I got a declined. There you go. So when it comes back declined, you'll see the describe suspend payment, etc. And that's what's happened there. So you actually get the full messaging on the declines and all the information that's on that. So I'm going to retry that again, but this time I will use a bank account instead. And there we go. So for group payments, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have your payment. This is what was submitted to and responded to from the gateway. So this has all the information. Go to payment details. This is what was happened. So this was approved, etc. This is all what came back from the gateway. And because it's a group payment, that's going to be split up. The first thing that happens is it posts a reversal. Now, going back to the original payment, you'll notice it says omit from client statement. So this original payment in full will be hidden from the client statement. This reversal gets hidden from the client statement and the daily cash report. This one's not hidden from the daily cash report because it's what's reconciling. This is what you're using for bank reconciliation. And then the payment to the group member, first one here is omit from daily cash report because it doesn't matter on the cash report, but this is the one that's going to appear on the client statement because this is the only payment that applies to this account. And if I go through the group members, I will see the other payment for the remainder over here on the other group member. Going back to that first account here, this one that has the payment plan on the group members here, one thing to be aware of when paying a group payment plan is it's right now it's ordered by listed date from oldest to newest. We are going to be adding a drop down where you can select how you want to order it, but right now it's oldest to newest unlisted, except for this member. This member has to be paid last. So when setting up a group payment on a group member, and you want to be on the newest account, then create it on the newest account. Because the reason this account has to be paid last is because it's got EFT notices that might have to go out. And if they're being sent to text messages, this is the account that's got the cell phone number. If it's going to email, this is the account that's going to have the email address, the promise contacts. And so we don't want to close this account and accidentally have any of that deleted. So the group member that has the payment plan is the last one to be paid. Okay, so that's it for the debtor side of things. I'm going to move on to a client. So clients, I'm just going to force an owing on this client just to have one. And so the clients, you can take payments now. Same thing, payment accounts is payment accounts. There's nothing special there. Click on payment form, brings up a form, shows me this client has an owing of $452. What does not happen on clients is two things. First of all, you can't do a repeat on clients. Clients is a single pay only. So I'm going to select check, add an account, fill in the company's banking information. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. We know this is a business checking, so I'm going to select that. And there you go. Select it. Even though it has the options here, it won't work. So as soon as I select monthly, when I submit this back to the gate or back to the collect, it's going to automatically change it back to no repeat. You cannot do payment plans on a client. The other thing that is not currently available that's in our to-do list one day is payments to client groups. So if a client says process $10,000 and split it up amongst all these client numbers, that's not there yet. One day we want to get that working, but too complicated right now, and we want to get this working for debtors for sure. So I can say 452.79. Actually, even if I say 500 and submit it, as mentioned, Collect has that intelligence to automatically reduce it down. Oh, okay. It's supposed to. I'll fix that before it gets released, but it should have reduced it down to 479 and taken care of that. So I'll make a note to fix that. Okay. But yeah, that's there now. The client portal will have this functionality at some point. Right now, we're focused on the consumer portal. Once the consumer portal is released, then we'll move on to the client portal so clients can sign into their account, make their payments. I'm going to check the Q&A first before I hand this off to Nick for the consumer portal. Yeah, I'm looking here. So can you explain the waive fee checkbox, which nobody has ever seen before? The waive fee actually exists in the old BillingTree module too, but the waive fee box, basically what it means is you can waive this $6 fee. And so, because by default, you might, if you set up convenience fees and collect to be, let's say 3% or something like that, you can waive it. If you set it up to be run off the gateway, so your payment provider, your merchant provider is the one charging fees to the debtor directly without going through you, you can check this box. You can check the waive fee box and have it get waived as well too. So basically it means I'm going to do a $0 fee on whatever it is. So that's where you control that. So it's just waives the fee. The next question, verbose reason for declines, bad versus no money. So I actually got that declined on that one account. Bradley here on this one. So in the top right, it tells me declined, and then this one says suspend payment. So this is what the card provider returns. We don't control this messaging. We just display the messaging. I've seen in some of our cases invalid AVS or AVS failure, so address verification failure. I've seen not sufficient funds. So it does return. It returns the message that the provider returns, and that's all we can do. Why wouldn't it autofill the owing amount? We could look into doing that. It's just because we don't know what people are wanting to set up, if it's a payment arrangement or that. I don't think the legacy module autofilled the amount either. That's just basically a question of, is it generally useful and do most people want it? We could autofill it. That wouldn't be that hard. Okay, no other questions. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Nicholas, who is going to show us what the current beta of the consumer portal looks like.
All right, let me just get my sharing going. All right, so everyone should see the consumer portal here. So this is our new payment tab. Once you have your payment configuration all set up and you've enabled it, the new tab will appear here. So yeah, I'll just go top to bottom, a little overview. So your contact information, company details will appear at the top, so people know who they're making their payments to. Their payment accounts is the first thing they have to select here. So when they first come in, there won't be any accounts. It'll say select an account and it will say add a new checking or add a new card. This depends on what is configured for you. So if you only have cards enabled or only checks, that'll only be one or the other. I have both. So for example, if I go into a new card, your contact details are pre-filled at the top. And then, as Rod mentioned before, this is the Evervolt iframe that is provided to us. So the information that's entered here will be encrypted as it goes off to Evervolt. So I can enter fake Visa in here and add to the account. That goes off to Evervolt, adds my new account, and after I add a new account, it's pre-selected for me here. Once you select an account, the form sort of comes alive here and you're allowed to edit information. So you have your first payment date here. It's titled first payment because you can set up a plan. So on no repeat, it's the only payment date. But if you have a frequency, then it's the date of the first payment. The first payment, you're only allowed to select up to a month in the future for. Here's the frequency, the number of payments. Right now I can't edit it, but if I choose, say, weekly, I can edit my number of payments. Rod had showed you the configuration form earlier for configuring the debtor portal rules. So the number of payments that you're allowed to make will either be the number of months that you've configured, or if your minimum payment amount, if your amount owing divided by your minimum payment amount is less than the total number of months that you're allowed, then that lower amount will be used. So in this case, I believe I have a minimum payment of 2,500. So my minimum payments are 20 months if I go by the amount, but I have a minimum payment months of 12. So in my case, I'm only allowed 12 months. So if I come in here and I try and make 20 monthly payments, here, if I change this, say I wanted to make 50 or 20, $2,500 payments, my minimum or my maximum number of payments is only 12. The reason it said 1 before there is because it also goes off your payment amount. So if I have a $50,000 payment amount, I can only make one payment. I can't overpay. Any payment frequency below monthly will break apart the maximum months allowed based on the frequency. So for instance, daily, if I want to make $100 payments, I can make, I believe, 360 in this case, 365. So if I have a minimum of 12 or a maximum of 12 monthly payments, but I choose daily, it's actually 12 times 30. So that's how the maximum is calculated. Your payment amount here is the same thing. So for monthly, I mentioned my maximum is 2,500, but if I end up choosing a frequency that's less than monthly, it'll be divided. So 2,500 divided by 30, I believe is something around 83. So if I try and make a payment less, 83.34 is my minimum there. Your fee is calculated after you enter an amount. Here's your amount owing and your payments remaining. And there's a little tooltip here just to let you know that your payments remaining is based on your amount owing and the payment amount that you're trying to pay at the moment. And then down below, we have the notifications. This is based on your EFT notices. So whatever you have configured there, you'll have the options here for notification. So let's just go try and make a payment here. So $5,000 monthly, 10 months with letter notifications, and I'll hit submit payment. And then that'll bring up the review. So it'll let you know what your first payment date is, how often you're paying, the number of payments you're making, the monthly payment amount, the fee for it, and the notifications that you have on. And then all you do is hit submit payment, and that'll go off. I won't actually submit a payment here because we're still working on the server code. But if I go back to my account, once you submit that plan, we have a new chunk here for payment plans. This table will show the payment plans that are posted on your account upcoming. So people will be able to review them there. So if I go back to my form, one quick thing before we look at the other buttons there is you can also edit your accounts here. So if I want to edit a card, I can click edit at the end. It'll bring it up and I can enter the details in here. So you'll notice there's two other options down here, payment arrangements and settlement offers. We'll look at payment arrangements first. So this form essentially behaves similar to the one in the back, although it just sort of walks people through it. It makes it a little easier to make arrangements. So you're asked for an initial payment. So this will be posted the day that they make this arrangement. You're not allowed to choose a payment date for this. It's immediate. You have a minimum payment enforced on here. So 2,500. but you can hit clear or enter 0 if you would like to skip the initial payment. So we'll just clear it here. And then down here is the arrangements. So this makes it a little easier. People don't have to do the math on minimum payment amounts, maximum payment months, all of that. They just get to choose a frequency. So in this case, monthly, and then they'll be presented with some options here. So I can do daily, more options, choose whatever frequency I want. The intervals here are based on 3-month periods. So every 3 months, the payment amount is calculated here and displayed. If I go to daily, it's also 3 months, but obviously in days. So 90 days for 3 months, 180 for 6, so on. And then if in this case, my amount owing cleanly breaks up within my 12-month allowance, but if my monthly, say my maximum months was 24 months, and I would have paid off my account based on the minimum payment before that 24 months come up, then the final option here will be however many months it takes to pay off my account. So it won't always be exactly 3-month intervals. The final one will be whatever pays off your account. And so similar here, say I want to make an initial payment 5,000 monthly. Here are my payment options. One thing to note, your payment amount in the initial changes what these options are. So whatever you pay gets deducted from your owing, and then these are calculated based on that amount. Choose an option, say I want a notification, hit review, and it'll break down which arrangement I've chosen. So your initial payment date, your initial amount, the fee for that, your plan, how many payments are in the plan, the first date of it, the monthly payment amount, the fee, and your notifications. So yeah, I believe that's it for payment arrangements. You are allowed to pay, I believe, 2 months into the future for payment arrangements. Yeah, that's that. So we'll just look at settlement offers. So in the screen that Rod had showed for settlement configuration, you can choose a range based on the debtor's listed date for when they're allowed to be offered a settlement. If they fall within that range, this button will appear to them. They can choose a payment date. They don't get an option of frequency. Settlements are only monthly. And then here are the settlement options. So you'll set a maximum percentage of a settlement in the configuration there. The 1 month payment will be based on that maximum amount. So say 50% of their debt is what you chose to settle for the maximum. That'll be what 1 month is. And then however many months you choose for them to settle for, so in this case 6 months is the maximum amount they're allowed to settle for, we'll calculate increasing percentage of discount going from that 1 month period to your maximum months. So at 1 month, they'll get the full discount. At 2, they'll get slightly less of a discount, so on, until finally at your maximum months, they're getting the least discount. It's still a bit of a discount, but it's not as much as the maximum at 1 month. So here's 6 months for 7,500. So they choose a settlement amount, same thing, choose a notification, prompted if they get a fee, and look at their review. Yeah, so that is what we have so far. There's still some work being done here. We have to explain a bit about the fees to the users. So I'm going to be adding a tooltip there just so they know if the fees are on each payment or if they're a one-time thing. But it's mostly there. So I'm just going to take a look and see if there's any questions. Let's see. In a group situation, if the total group balance exceeds the owing on the file the promise is on, how will it continue to pay down the group?
That's for me. I'll trust that.
Okay.
So Gavin's asking, will a debtor receive a message as to why they cannot do something based on set criteria? What does this look like?
Yeah, so each of the fields will explain to them why they can't do something. Um, I should add something here for no repeat, but I think that's fairly self-evident. If it's no repeat, you can't make more than one payment. So for example, monthly, here I have, let's say 100. I'm not allowed to make over 12 payments. So if I try to make more, they'll tell me that the maximum payments allowed is 12. I This is a good question. I could make it a bit more clear for, say, if you wanted to pay 40,000 and the maximum payment is allowed 2. The reason why it is only 2 is because while your maximum months is 12, obviously you can't make 12 payments of 40,000 on a 50,000 debt. So I could make that a bit more clear, but they are given a message as to what the maximum is. Same with payment amount. If they try and go below that, 500, it'll tell them what the maximum must be. So yeah, I can make the number of payments a bit more verbose, but for the other fields, it does tell them what their minimum is, what the maximum months is, so on.
Just doesn't go into why, and the why is because that's the way you configured it on your system in the background. Okay, next question, Nick, if you want to scroll up and go back to the account. So up one level. This payment plan list here, the question is, will the debtor have the ability to cancel a payment plan?
I don't believe at the moment we have that. We definitely have the ability for your collectors to cancel payment plans. So in the payment form on CB13, they can go in and cancel payment plans there. I don't believe at the moment we have the ability to cancel payment plans via this screen, but it definitely can be added.
So that's something we can look into, adding a cancel button, and then once it's done, then they can go back in and set up a new payment plan. And we'd also want to look at setting up, if a payment plan exists, not being able to set up another one or some sort of logic there. We can look into that. Okay. So the next question is, so on this payment arrangement option where you have the initial payment, the first payment, the second date field allows up for 2 months later. The question was, can an agency overwrite that?
So yeah, not at the moment, but I believe we may want to change this default just to be 1 month. I believe it was set to 2 months because of how we previously had the sort of workflow of this page. It's not configurable at the moment, but if it makes sense for most people, we can have this calendar only be 1 month into the future for payment arrangements.
And unless we'd love the feedback and get the feedback from the clients, but an idea I'm throwing out there would be, if they have an initial payment, leave it at 2 months, but if the initial payment is blank, restrict it to 1 month. So if anyone has feedback on that idea, let us know.
Can the program be set to only allow managers to cancel the existing plan? Yeah, we'll work that into the configuration. So as I said, we don't have the ability right now to let debtors cancel their payment plans. But as we work that in, we'll definitely consider making it configurable to whether or not they can, or if managers can only do it.
I think that question relates more terms to managers versus collectors. So on the other side, so only allow certain user levels the ability to cancel plans. There's no access rights for that at the moment, so we'd have to look into adding an access right for that button, and then you can set permissions on the button. So we can look into that. So I'll make a note of that. And so to circle back to that other question, group situation, if the total group balance exceeds the owing for the file. So that's why the group member gets paid last. So the promises aren't going to move, the EFT notices aren't going to move. That group member that has the payment plan is the last one to get paid to deal with that situation where the group is being paid before the current member because of the owing is higher than the current account's owing. So yeah, so that's the answer there is the current group member gets paid last. Okay. Any other questions? Give you guys a minute. Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. If you do have any other questions, you can feel free to contact support@collect.org and we can address your questions there. I believe Barb mentioned we're also looking for betas for Repay and some others. So if you want to, again, you can contact support@collect.org and we can look into that. But thank you for your time. Recording of this should be available soon, and we look forward to seeing this new module in use. Goodbye.